All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, I've got Ashley and can't see the name here. Could you tell me your name?
It's Casey.
Casey. Okay, great. Okay, welcome. We actually have 8 people registered in the class, but there are only a couple of us today. So I'm going to go over the syllabus and give a little bit of an introduction to post-impressionist movement today and kind of set you up for the course in general. Okay. Do you have any questions before we begin? Anything? No, so far so good. All right, so I'm Dr. Ala Maizelov. I teach here in the Department of Art History, and my specialty is modern and contemporary art. So what we're doing is exactly what kind of I specialize in. The class it covers from the time period from about 1890 to 1950. And I've done most of my research on 1910s and 1930s, 1920s. So, so that's kind of where we're going to go. Um, Ashley, Casey, would you like to introduce yourselves a little bit? Just tell me your major, your minor, what brings you to this class?
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm majoring in psychology, but I'm doing a double minor in art history and geology. And I wanted to take this class because I couldn't take an art history class last semester.
Okay, all right, excellent. So what class were you trying to take last semester?
I honestly couldn't even look at any of the classes because I had to take, a lot of my psychology requirements and all
Right.
that.
All right, okay. I get it. I know. Last semester was pretty unnerving and crazy for everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Welcome, Casey.
I'm Casey. I'm majoring in history and adolescent education, and I'm minoring in art history. And the reason I took this class is since I'm double majoring, technically I don't have enough time in my regular schedule if I still want to be able to minor in art history. So that's why I'm taking classes over the winters and summers.
Okay, wow, you're busy. Okay, great. All right, so that's wonderful because I both of you are art history minors, so I assume you kind of you're interested in art. It's a safe assumption, I think. And I think you're relatively new. Did you take any other art history courses before in high school or here in Geneseo? Casey, what about you?
I think it was 174 with Dr. Tooth.
It was 173 or 172.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was we started with Rococo, and then I think we ended with postmodernism, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Next
Okay,
year.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I think I took 172.
Uh-huh. Okay, so
Yeah.
you started where? In Middle Ages?
Middle Ages until Rococo.
Okay, all right, great. So, Casey, you've basically at least glanced over what we're going to do, and for you, Ashley, it may be new because you didn't. The 172 doesn't get as far, but that's fine. The class is because it has a general education kind of component to that. The class is set up so that people who don't have much background can take it as well. Um, all right. So, oh, we have one more person. Jenna. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome. We were just introducing ourselves, and we just started. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what your major and minor, and what brings you to class.
My name's Jenna. I'm currently undecided, but I think I want to go for psych. That's about it.
That's about it. Okay. Are you where are you at you in terms of your university career? Is that your first
I'm
year?
a freshman, yeah.
You're a freshman, so you survived the first term, the first
Yeah,
semester. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. That
thank
was the
you.
in I've been teaching for 15 years. It was the last semester was the hardest semester I had as a professor. So I can only imagine what it was for students. Okay, so if you don't mind, then I'm going to share my screen, and I want to first of all uh, show you how the course is set up on Canvas, and kind of prepare you for what to expect. And then I'm quickly going to go over syllabus, and then I'm going to talk about class material. Okay, so again, the class covers time period from 1890 to 1950. This is kind of roughly. Hopefully, we will go at the end. We'll go a little bit further than that into pop art, but that's kind of overall. That's where we're at. So, which means the following. Uh, in terms of the how survey courses or specialized 200 level courses go in art history, that one probably covers the shortest amount of time because we're only looking at 60 years. But at the same time, this is probably most researched and most intense time period in art history because, as you will see, movements change every few years, literally, and sometimes they, like, 2 years later you've got something completely different coming up. So it's an intense, it's a time of intense change. Okay, so Canvas wise, we have the course is divided into 5 modules and an introductory one. So the introductory is basically kind of like syllabus and other stuff. And the way I think I set it up is you have to kind of look into, go in order, but only for introductory one, and then you're free to do whatever you like. And so we have about 4.5 weeks. So I've divided the work more or less equally into this, but I try to put more coursework, a little bit more in at the beginning, to give you a little bit more time to work on your essay at the end. Okay. So the requirement for the course is to, go over the material and etc. In addition to that, there are kind of what they call participation assignments. So they're small assignments, and there are, I think, about 8 of them, where you just write up to 500 words based on whatever I ask you to do, like a discussion post or blogs. And the rest of the mark comes from work related to the essay. So at the end of the class, you have to write a 10-page essay on a topic that you choose. So we're kind of scaffolding that, and I'm starting you from doing annotated bibliography, then paper proposal, which is basically a one page kind of what you're thinking of writing. Then I will ask you to do a paper outline where you're doing a rough draft and doing your arguments, a research presentation where you present your material, and then the essay. Okay, so all these kind of connect, but it also gives me a lot of opportunity to make sure that you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing, you found your sources, your topic is manageable, your thesis statement can be argued and actually would be, and you're not writing a dissertation and you're not writing a book, but you're writing a 10-page essay. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. Okay, so this is the first module, post-impressionism and its legacy. And this is how each module is divided. You have compulsory work, which are some videos, some readings, here some PowerPoints, and then you have optional things. In the optional things, you have a number of things that you're welcome to watch and read, etc. But It is optional. I mean, if you are interested and you have time, some of the videos are really fun. Go for it. If you don't, you don't. I have also included Zoom recordings of the lectures that I did last in the fall. I was teaching 287 in the fall. So those are recordings of the classes as well. Some of them are discussions that you may find useful. Some of them are lectures that you may find useful, but they are optional. The important part is here in the compulsory work. And then at the end of each module, there are assignments that are due within those dates within the module. So for January 8, you have 2 discussions to do, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. So in addition to that, you have to get a textbook, and I'm going to now go to the syllabus and show you what you need to have. Okay, so I'm in the syllabus for this class, which I emailed everyone last night as well. So the important part right now is to get this textbook. Art since 1900, modernism, anti-modernism, and postmodernism. Okay, now you only need volume 1. There are 2 volumes. Don't buy the second one. We're not getting into that. You only need volume 1. And the way the book is organized is it organized by years. So your reading would be, when I tell you to read something, it would be actually read 1901. So then you read the article that deals with 1901. The reason the book is organized like that, as I said, things change very, very quickly. So what happens is the book takes 1 or 2 artworks or a very important exhibition, for example, that happened in that year, and it deals with that. Most of the articles in like years in the textbook are between 3 to 5 pages. So they're not and there are images as well. So they're not huge. They tend to be fairly dense, not exceptionally, but they are, you need to concentrate as you read. But then I also have videos and PowerPoints that have a lot of text that will help you to understand the reading, and kind of we can go back and forth. We also will have the sessions here from 1 to 2 every Monday. So if you have questions, email me. We can talk about that as well. Okay. The rest of this is I will talk about the class in on and off all kind of throughout. So these are the kind of this is what will happen, what you need to do, modes of evaluation. So your participation assignments, these sessions that we're having right now, they're not, it's up to you. If you find them useful, by all means, I will also post them online. If nobody shows up, that's kind of no session. I'll go over what I feel is important that week, but that's about it. So participation is 27%. In this 27%, I think there are eight or so participation assignments. Most of them are discussions. And then we've got annotated bibliography, paper proposal, paper outline, presentation, and then final essay. So what I said, like each of them, except final essay is more, but other than that, it's 12% per assignment. So here you're welcome to read about the final essay and bibliography, etc. I will talk to you next week about the bibliography, because that would be coming up. And then on the syllabus as well, based on the module, this is the title of the module. The material is on Canvas, and these are the assignments that come with each of the modules. what else is there? So I'm available basically by, if you I have a Google Calendar open, and I also have email. So email me if you want to talk to me in person, if you want to discuss your topic, your assignment. Email will figure out the time for that. The course is essentially self-paced, right? So okay, I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions. No? Okay. All right, so let me just see something. So annotated, I think I'm going to go over the annotated bibliography with you today as well. Okay, so the assignments that are due on the 8th, so I think it's a Friday, are 2 discussion blocks. So let me just explain to you what. The first module does not require you to buy a textbook. It gives you time to order it, to borrow it, to do whatever you need to do to get the textbook. So we're not working with the textbook, we're working with an article. And that article is called Invisible Flaneur. Flaneur is someone who strolls around and looks at street life. Not so much during COVID times, but mainly in the 19th century and 20th century. So Elizabeth Wilson, who wrote an article about a flaneur, she talks basically about how people entertained and how they were looked at in the 19th century and 20th century in Europe. So she talks about the idea of the flaneur as someone who could be an artist or a journalist, and who takes on the idea of what it means to be kind of modern and being part of the modern life. Because the whole idea of the street life, you know, the nice things like coffee shop with tables outside, or with music and people dancing in the park, which was very popular in Paris, and kind of people gossiping and checking each other out, and walking on the street and shopping, that was very, very important part. All that was the invention of the 19th century. Most of that was not around before 1820s, 1830s. So that kind of like urban life and city entertainment becomes very, very important part of art for impressionists. Everybody knows who impressionists were, like at least heard the word. So impressionists are people who are who kind of interested in the life outside, and they try to portray kind of the air and almost the wind outside, kind of, and colors, etc. Very briefly. So they become very, very interested in also in leisure time of, and who can afford leisure. Well, if you have money, right? If you're working class and you're in service, you're a servant or something, you do not have leisure time. But you have leisure time if you are a middle class person or an upper class person. So this leisure time and entertainment also becomes intensely observed by artists and by others. So Elizabeth Wilson talks about this idea as a flaneur. What I'm asking you to do is read the article, and the article is really kind of interesting. And then answer 2 of the questions that I have for you here. So kind of, and the questions are really, they deal with the text. So you can make it as open or as kind of related to the text if you would like. Each answer should be between 150 to 200 words. And the article is posted in the module. Questions? No? So far so good? Okay, great. All right, so then I'm going to go back. So that's number 1. And number 2 is so your favorite work of art. So again, 150 to 200 words. Favorite, but I'm also asking you to choose a favorite from post-impressionist movement. So we are going to talk about in the module about post-impressionist. So I want you to choose one work of art that you consider post-impressionist, whether from the module or from anywhere else, and explain why you think it belongs to post-impressionism, and kind of what makes it interesting to you. And then please take a look at other people's posts. If you can, just kind of agree, disagree, tell them if you also like this work or if you hate that, depending. All right, questions on that? Pretty straightforward. Okay, so going back, I want to go over the annotated bibliography because that's coming due on Monday. And if you have questions, then on Monday we can talk about it. It's a short assignment with a lot of text to read. Okay, so annotated bibliography. That we are starting to think about the end game, the end goal, your essay. So before you think about bibliography, you have to think about the topic of your assignment, the topic of your work. You don't have to do a thesis yet. You can just kind of think about the topic. What I would do if you don't have much background in modern art is once you get your textbook, go through the textbook and look at the images that you like and see what you like and read around the text about on the image that you like. Or do the same thing with the PowerPoints that I have here. If you are stuck, let me know. We can brainstorm together. I will not give you a topic, but I will talk to you into kind of figuring it out. So, so once you have the topic, and then the topic has to be obviously kind of come from time period of the class, kind of what we discussed. So 1890 to 1960s. Then you're going to start doing your research and finding 5 to 7, minimum of 5 peer-reviewed academic articles or books, probably articles because you can't really get the books necessarily that quickly, on the topic, right? So have you done research before? Yeah. Okay. So you know how to. If you're stuck, I'm here. So once you find something, the most important part, and the text here, I have kind of idea. I have here everything. The style of citations, which I prefer MLA, but you're welcome to do anything else. Kind of like, how do you know what is peer reviewed and what is academic, and kind of the web pages, what about them, and don't use them for that assignment at all, please. This is just for you, kind of for your general information. And then I have a rubric that how I basically look at the how correct, how is the source peer reviewed. If it's cited correctly, I take very little point for incorrect citations, but I do. And if an annotation makes sense, basically, right? So so what I have here is all this kind of descriptions. What I want you to look at is right here. This is a sample of an annotation for the bibliography. That's the way I'd like you to do it. I'm asking for about 5 sentences of annotation summarizing the article or the source, and your last sentence should explain why is this a good source for your topic or for your future essay. Okay, that's that. If you are in doubt whether or not it's an academic source, feel free to fire me a link, and I will. I'm happy to take a look for you. There's of course a JSTOR, which is great. You've probably used JSTOR, right? I sometimes use Google Scholar. It's a little tricky because you're not, but if you have a PDF of the file there, you can kind of figure out if that's a peer reviewed and academic. And it's sometimes you get really great examples. No database has everything. Okay, so if you cannot find stuff in the JSTOR, try Google Scholar. If you cannot do that, go to Bibliography of the History of Art. I have a guide from the library that I'm going to post online, how to do research. And we also have an art librarian, Alessandra Terra, who's really, really nice and really sweet and can help you if you're stuck. Okay, so take all that into consideration. So your final submission should have 5 to 7 annotated sources with alphabetized and with the citation in any style that you like, but as long as you're consistent at the top. Then the annotation, kind of like here. See, this is the citation here, and this is the annotation, and this is your last sentence. Hi, Christine. And then we're going to, and then that's it, basically. The first thing that you will put at the top is your topic. So start from your topic or your thesis statement, and then go down. Questions? Okay. Okay, if you do, email me. Now, when I would email somewhere in the syllabus on Canvas, I usually answer my emails during the day. So, and if for some reason the day goes by and like 24 hours and I still haven't answered your email, feel free to email me again. There things I usually, I know it's a very short course, so I try to kind of to email and deal with things as quickly as I can. Okay, so those are some the assignments that we have coming up. Okay, so 2 discussion posts and annotated bibliography. Okay, perfect. So I'm still sharing my screen, so I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to get into here and look at post-impressionism. Okay. So the reason we're starting at the point the modern art starts with post-impressionism for us is because it's the first time where not only the style changes quite drastically from naturalistic representation, but also different artists do it in different ways. So within the style itself, there is a plurality of different approaches, right? Different approaches to how people portray things. That hadn't happened before. Impressionism was pretty cohesive. There were different artists took things differently, but overall it was more or less cohesive. I'm going to show you Claude Monet's work, the clouds, from 1926. So time-wise, it's much later. But in terms of, if you look at this is a quintessential impressionist painting, kind of like really quintessential impressionist. Why? It shows nature. It was done on plein air, which is outside, right? Not inside. It was done fairly quickly, meaning few hours and then some work in the studio maybe, but not like days and months, like mainly months like academic artists do. And it doesn't have a story. It doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't have a message for us, like defend your motherland or something like that. It has nothing like that. It is purely because Monet wants us to look at this and enjoy the colors, enjoy the nature, enjoy that reflection of the clouds in the pond of water in his house in Giverny. That's all it is. So, and this is what Impressionism is. Impressionism is challenging art in terms of technique, because Impressionism uses larger brush strokes. It basically says no to black. It doesn't use black as a color, or tries to avoid using black as a color. It uses, it tries to express the changing air and atmosphere, but it does not change, or it does not challenge anything about that relates to the narrative, the content of the work. Okay, so most of the works of Impressionism just look at things kind of like as for enjoyment, for beauty, for inspiration. Okay. So before we go any further, let me ask you, why do you think, or how do you feel about the invention of photography that happened around 1830s, but then kind of the photography proliferated and became popular around 1850s, 1860s? How do you think the photography influenced art? Casey.
Well, we kind of talked about this like when I took the class with Dr. Tooth, but it was kind of like painting realism wasn't as important anymore because the camera could just do that. So it was more about painting things like more abstract and like with different styles than just like in a realist type of style.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Okay. Kudos to you for remembering. Anybody else? Any other kind of ideas, thoughts?
I would think that color would become more important too after photography was initially invented, because weren't photographs in black and white at first?
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. We don't see real colored photography until early 20th century. There are ways, there were people who would color their negatives. You know what negatives are, right? So they would color their negatives and then develop them so it would actually look kind of like color, but it was a very, very hard and laborious process, and it was very artistic. Overall, absolutely. So what we have is mechanization. Photography takes on naturalistic representation of people, places. You can actually create your portrait. It is ultimate democratization of art because it's much less expensive than going to the studio and sitting for an artist for months and months, or weeks and weeks. So that is seems like continuing this naturalistic representation seems a little bit redundant. And as a result of that, Impressionists then start thinking about, okay, how do we improve on photography, right? How do we make art that is more than photography? And they start experimenting with color and brush strokes, etc. Okay, so Impressionism is basically done as a movement by about 1880s. And once it's finished and done, there are several people that come after that are very much influenced by Impressionists, but at the same time, they take Impressionism to a different direction, and they are called post-Impressionists. So there are, we will talk about five. There are a few more that are very, very famous, but these are probably the five, right? So there's Paul Cézanne, Paul Gauguin, Vincent van Gogh, whom I'm sure you've heard of and know, George Paul Seurat, and Henri Toulouse-Lautrec. The way I organize them here is by age. Cézanne is the oldest and Lautrec is the youngest, but we're not going to look at them that way. We're going to look at them in a way that whoever is closest to Impressionism to whoever is furthest from Impressionists. As you can see, again, most of them, maybe except Seurat and Toulouse-Lautrec, are really contemporaries of Impressionists. Impressionism started around 1870 and ended at around 1883. So these people actually saw, and all of them tried Impressionist technique before they decided that that's not necessarily for them. They want to do something slightly different. All five are drastically different from each other. This is the interesting part. They all come out of the same thing, but they all kind of are very different. So the term post-impressionism is when they were creating things, they called themselves modernists, impressionists, modern artists. The term post-impressionist was actually invented by Roger Fry, who is a British art critic, in 1910 to describe an exhibition that he put together in London, the development of French art since Claude Monet. So this is the invented name. We are going to start by looking at Georges Seurat. A Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grangeade, from 1884 to 1886. It's a giant painting. Look at the size, 6 by 10 feet. So it's like, you think about it, you almost, when you come to the painting, you can almost kind of walk along with the painting itself. And it's in Chicago Institute of Art. It's a really interesting piece. So Seurat adopts a new technique which called pointillism, from the word pointillism. And so instead of brush strokes, he uses literally dabs of color, tiniest dabs of color, to create this. Unlike Impressionists, he goes back to black. You can see the black dog here, right? But at the same time, he still does not use black for the shadow. So if you want to look right now at the image here and look at all the shadows that we see. Before Impressionists, shadows were usually portrayed as either very dark brown or dark gray or black, because but Impressionists realized that if you go on a sunny day and you look at your shadow, it's not black or gray. It's actually a dark tone of whatever your shadow is. So if it's a grass, then the tone is dark green. And that's exactly what Seurat is doing here. He's repeating that idea of the kind of darker tones of the shadows. So in that sense, and in the sense of what he represents, he's definitely still an impressionist, because what he represents is, remember we talked about flaneur a little bit, kind of, this is the leisure. This is the ultimate people, working class or middle class people on Sunday in that island that is right outside of Paris. So if you want to get away from the kind of hustle and bustle of Paris, you would take a train and you would find yourself, you cross the bridge and you find yourself by the beach of the Seine. That's this little island here in the park, and you spend the day and then you go back. You have a picnic or something and you go back, right? So Seurat here acts as a flaneur. He's observing modern life. He's observing all these people and he's portraying them. Now, unlike Impressionists, the Impressionists would probably bring an easel and bring canvas, sketch it quickly, paint it, maybe go a few times, and finish it in about a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. Well, Sarah spent 2 years on this piece. It's we just talked about how big it is, and he spent from 1884 to 1886 working on just this one piece. He did not have any much other work, and he was supported by his mother. He didn't have to do anything. Unfortunately, he also had consumption. He was very sick, and he died quite young. So all he does for about 2.5 years is work on this. He works on that so slowly because, of course, it takes him. And he usually would work with the magnifying glass because the painting was so painstakingly slow. He uses this and he creates, as you can see, he creates this variation in tone. He uses different color, but a very similar but different tone to create that shimmering effect. You can see that pretty much, especially the greenery, really has that kind of almost shimmers, kind of based on the light. The other insane thing that I wanted to show you is the woman that is on my right, that stands like clearly middle class with an umbrella. If you look at it down, you can probably see that she has a dog and a monkey. So the monkey was a very popular pet at the time, jumping around and then kind of being next to the owner was really the it. So it is not something that was out of the ordinary. It would be, you would see it quite often. A woman would have a lap dog and a monkey, or a couple of monkeys, or just one with her, kind of walking around. Okay, so that's Surah. He develops his own technique of pointillism, but in many ways he follows the impressionism in terms of the subject matter, etc. Okay, so he says that art is harmony. Harmony is the analogy of the contrary and of similar elements of tone, of color, and of line, considered according to their dominance and under the influence of light in gay, calm, or sad combinations. So this is how he feels about art, that it has to be harmonious. Questions? Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit kind of further. And I'm going to introduce you to Paul Cézanne. So this is Cézanne. I'm going to start here. This is Cézanne himself, right here on the left, in front of this modern Olympia. And this is what he says. He says, "I'm unable to accept the unauthorized judgment of colleagues whom I have not myself appointed to evaluate my work." And this is just a short introduction to the kind of personality of Cézanne. Cézanne never feels recognized. He has a very long life, and he works a lot on various kind of on connection between impressionism and classical culture, and I will show that to you again and again. Early on in his career, he has he kind of he encounters Monet. This is Monet's Olympia, a very important modern painting, but he also has that kind of mixed fear and admiration for women. So he portrays a lot of nudity in his art. But slowly he also kind of moves on to other things. So this is his portrait. I'm just going to show that to you, and I'll talk a little bit more about other things. I'll get to here. So you're looking at this point, you're looking at Cézanne's Still Life with Apples from 1895 to 1898. And it's not that he worked on this for 3 years. It is that he created so many similar still lifes that we don't know when he created this one in particular. So think about an obsessive person in your life, someone who has, kind of like gets stuck on things. Now imagine someone who is 10 times more, and you will get an idea of Cézanne. And for good and for bad, I mean, it's like as a personality, he was not he was not a happy person. As an artist, he was amazing. So he becomes really stuck with this idea. He says, Impressionism is great. I like it a lot, but Impressionism is too fleeting for me. It's essentially like a snapshot, right? You portray something, like think about Monet that we saw, that idea of the like reflection of the clouds. It's amazing, but it's here and it's not here. I want my art to, says Cézanne, to be a lot more permanent. So I want to take those fleeting ideas and combine it with more traditional art, traditional in a sense of subject matter. We have so still life, landscape, representation of reclining or nude women, etc. And this is what he's trying to do. So okay, so this is what I really want you to kind of to understand what that what Cézanne is trying to do is impossible. Literally, like you can't do that. You cannot take snapshot and then take a work that is kind of from Renaissance and create a successful amalgamation of the two. He ultimately fails, but fails spectacularly in a way that because he influences so many artists that came after him. Okay, so it's like the most interesting failed attempt in the history of art. So he creates, as he experiments with this idea, he also encounters a lot of other innovations that seemed like a good idea to him. You're looking at one of them. So this is a still life. Now, if you were to take an art class, not art history, but art, one of the first things you're going to be asked to do is to paint a still life. There is nothing more academic than still life for everyone. And it was like that since at least 17th century. So still life is this kind of completely academic traditional thing that you do. So here's Cézanne doing that. But if you take a look at the fruits or the tablecloth or that little drapery at the back, what we see is that still life is not naturalistic. The brush strokes are quite large. The source of light comes from several points, and the tablecloth itself, it seems like he's kind of wrinkled it to put more fruits on there, right? So these slowly he starts dividing his work into planes, so into like literal fields where he does that, and that will develop into cubism later. And this interest in kind of in art, as a kind of like representation from different sides and light source coming from different sides, that becomes cubism later. Okay, so I'm going to go kind of forward, but what I want you to remember is that Cézanne is trying to combine the classical and impressionist. As a result, fails completely, but as a result, invents cubism in many ways, or pre-cubism, and kind of and influences a lot of artists in terms of how he applies paint and how he applies and how he divides his paintings. Questions? Okay, I'm just scrolling. You have this PowerPoint. You can then return to that. I'm just showing you kind of like what he did, and I'm moving on to our next person. Now, our next person is Henri Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Montfort, or Toulouse-Lautrec. So Toulouse-Lautrec comes from a wealthy aristocrats, and he comes from, and unfortunately he had several accidents while riding horses in the in early adolescence, as well as he was inbred. His mother was married to his cousin or something like that. So when after he fell off the horse, his legs stopped growing, and his kind of his upper body was almost kind of along the side of what average person would be, but his legs were very short. So as a result of that, he became somewhat depressed, I think, but also kind of very interested in arts, because he couldn't do what members of his class would normally do. So hunt, be more physical, ride horses, etc. So he becomes very familiar with impressionists, and and Toulouse-Lautrec in general kind of embraces that idea of the nightclub and nightlife. So here I have art at the Moulin Rouge. If you haven't watched the movie with Nicole Kidman, that's your next assignment. It's a good film, and it gives you the representation of Toulouse-Lautrec has nothing with Toulouse-Lautrec really, but it's still kind of fun to see. Moulin Rouge is of course a nightclub in Paris, and similar to the movie representation of Moulin Rouge, it's a nightclub where people come to hang out, and there is a performance. But then there are also kind of things that could happen sexually behind the scenes as well. So that separation between kind of being respectable and being not respectable in terms of the 19th century, that's very blurry. So not only Toulouse-Lautrec then becomes the flaneur, and then becomes the kind of likes to watch and represent what's going on in Moulin Rouge, he becomes almost part of the club. So here I have the you can see, right, that he represents himself in the club, kind of part of the crowd. But he also, I'm going to skip that, but I want you to he also kind of observes people living in Moulin Rouge and around Moulin Rouge, because that area is very much area of nightlife, including brothels and including kind of all kinds of entertainment. So he becomes friends of the prostitutes that work, and this for example, this is the representation of two very young sex workers that he represents, and he becomes friends with them. He's not, I mean, we can think about it as being kind of this creepy voyeuristic representations, but from what we understand, from what he left and others left about him, it was a lot more kind of kind of hanging out together and friendship than anything else. So two friends, a little bit of a kind of like definitely homoerotic kind of connections here as well. And of course, Toulouse-Lautrec also becomes one of the people that connects between art and graphic arts. So he's interested in lithography, and he starts designing for Moulin Rouge and for other nightclubs. He starts designing a fish, like the advertisement, right? So the things that are coming up, so all the concerts, all the singers and that will be coming to the clubs. So he becomes one of the most prominent designers of graphic designers in Paris of the time. So here is another example of that. Okay, so these are questions we're going to, like, you will do it later. I am kind of going really fast now. Paul Gauguin. Paul Gauguin is never thought he will become an artist. He was actually a stockbroker in Paris. Had a wife and 4 children. Falls in love with art when he's in his early 30s. Kind of as a result of something happens in the stock exchange, he loses his job and he becomes a full-time artist. As a result of that, he becomes not only full-time artist but very poor artist. Nobody buys his painting. He feels very unappreciated. His wife and takes his children and goes to live with her family. So the relationship is strained. Here I have for you The Yellow Christ by Paul Gauguin from 1889. So first of all, I need to tell you that this is kind of portrait of Gauguin. So this is how he looks like. So he portrays himself as this poor, unappreciated artist who sacrifices himself for his art and not understood by people at all. From Impressionism, Gauguin borrows really very little, but what he does borrow is his freedom of color, what he takes to a completely different dimension. He's really free with his colors. So yes, there are brush strokes here, but more so we see those larger color fields. And from the idea of actual kind of escape into entertainment and leisure, Gauguin then uses that to escape further. This is kind of almost illusory life of fantasy, and then his overall kind of predominant desire throughout his life is go away from Europe to a place called Tahiti that he visited when he was much younger, and he eventually, in the end of the 90s, he eventually goes there and he portrays something like that. And here we have all the cultural appropriation in the most, from our perspective, the most horrible form that we can think of, because he pretends to be a shaman for the Aboriginal people. He marries a girl who is 14 years old. He portrays her again and again. He studies the language, and he kind of becomes this kind of like leader of the group without really understanding what the group is and what are the values, etc., etc. But the art that comes out is really interesting, and we have to look at that art within the time period. So he uses a lot of kind of the ideas of the imaginary, imaginary people, imaginary orient. Okay, and finally, we're getting to Vincent van Gogh. And I'm starting with his famous Potato Eaters from 1885. So, as you probably know, Van Gogh became an artist also similar to Gauguin later in life. He was a preacher, a bookseller, an art dealer, very educated, definitely mental health problems. I'm not going to even try to kind of to decide what it is, but finally he decides that he wants to be an artist, and this is what he considers his first really kind of mature painting once he finished his initial kind of learning process, and this is 1885. So we see here a Dutch family of very poor farmers whose dinner is potatoes, boiled potatoes, and coffee, and that's all they have. And he's very expressive in terms of how he looks at things, and you can see here him making these people almost look like potato, you know, like look at this the skin and then the colors and everything. Everything about their life seems to be centered around this potato farm and potatoes. And then from there, 3 years later, he comes up with that, and even before that. So once he studies in Holland, he comes to Paris, he stays in Paris for a few months. His brother is there, and then he goes to the south of France and he portrays, and he comes up with that. He falls in love with color, like that very shimmering, and again that very shimmering color that Van Gogh portrays. And he is the one, and that's what I want you to remember, if nothing else from this, is he uses color in a completely arbitrary way. He does not attach color to naturalistic representation. He does what he wants with color, not so much here, but slowly in other works. So he uses color to express how he feels and his mood, rather than really naturalistic representation, and that becomes very important for him. So of course there is a Starry Night, where again we see him kind of portraying his how he feels the anxiousness, but also this kind of shimmering effect, and the wind kind of going, and that's again, it's a landscape, but it's mainly about how he feels about the landscape at that time. All right, questions, comments? So far so good. All right, so that's kind of gave you a little bit of intro on post-impressionists. Go ahead, do start thinking about your topics, start thinking about your research. Let me know if you have any questions. Be well, and I will see you next week here at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.